higher direct costs. So our costs today are lower. In Australia, when they federalize it, costs double in 3 years. Okay. Listen, if you cannot at the same time say, I'm going to keep all the people already doing that job, I'm going to take the offices in every place, I'm going to put an head office over that, and it's going to cost less. Okay? Doesn't add up. Okay? A strong bias to uniformity. And here the concentration of the industry, very important. Because from a bank point of view, if you're the compliance officer, what you want is same rules, same regulator across the country. It makes your job easier. Okay, so in essence, the dominant market is going to bring the attention, and the structure of our industry is going to basically put a premium on uniformity across the country. But there's a cost to that, and it's what it means in the different regions of the country, in terms of new shares in particular. And a gradual erosion of not only capacity, but the resources and knowledge and influence that we find in securities regulatory agencies across the country. And I like to close by going about one of the major, to me, costs of centralization. And it's very much in line with the Full Sail initiative that I read the report. It's very much in line with that very issue. If we look at this score, okay, in Canada between 95 and 2000, there was 1,300 IPOs in Canada, compared to 450 in Australia. In Canada, on average, there's 215 companies that go public every year, compared to 3,010 in the US. 3,857 companies listed on the TSX Venture between '86 and 2006, which represents basically 60% of all the IPOs in the US in numbers. So we have a very important venture market in Canada. Now, why is that important? It is important because the studies about the dynamics of economic growth, and this comes from what the Premier was talking, is basically driven, if you look in terms of job creation, by a very small number of very high growth firms. They represent between 5 and 7% of the total firms of an economy. The studies show that basically that rule applies just about every region. It also shows that high growth firms are not in high tech or whatever, they're across the board in all industries. Those firms that high growth create a disproportionate amount of jobs relative to their size. In the US, for instance, between 2002 and 2006, 6.5% of the firms, those high growth firms, created 84% of the net jobs creation. That's a hell of it. Okay. They're not startups, some are, but the bulk of them have 4 years of age or more. Okay. In Canada, we have some data, and recent studies were done, took firms between 85 and 99, took firms that existed in 85 and existed again in 99, and in essence, those high growth firms basically accounted for 56% of the net jobs. In New Brunswick, for that same period, 6.8 of the firms, total firms, 6.8% were viewed as high growth, and they created 41% of the new employment in this province. Now, the problem is, which one is that 6%? And to that, I would suggest to you that capital markets have been a better score of identifying them and supporting them than any other type of means. Now, those high-growth firms cannot generate, as a rule, the capital required to fuel their growth. They're growing very fast. By the way, they export 4 times more than other type of firms. Okay. So in essence, they need capital. There's 2 ways to go. You go venture cap, or you go to the market. The issue we have in Canada is the venture cap industry has had lousy returns. For the last 10 years, the return on venture capital was minus 3% in Canada, compared to 16, 17 in the US. And by the way, government funded or fiscally and so on have a worse record. So venture capital has not been very good. And one of the CEO of one of the largest venture cap across Canada told me, the difference is very simple. In Canada, we have as many failures as they have in the US, but we don't have home runs. So the returns are not there. What we do have in Canada, which is contrary to what we find across Europe, all the experiences, we have a junior capital market that in essence replaces the venture cap. And Japan has tried it, Europeans have tried it, Scandinavians are trying it, the US are trying having a venture exchange, and it has not worked. The only place where it really works is Canada. And that venture exchange is very important, not only for industrial and high-tech and so on, it funds basically the resource-based sector, because mining exploration, oil and gas exploration and so on, you ain't going to get a line of credit from the bank. Okay? It's just not going to work. Only equity will do it. Venture cap is not in that field. And basically the only place to go is the market. As a matter of fact, 29% of the capital raised in the junior mining, oil and gas, and exploration sector, 29% of the total that was raised by the mining and oil and gas sector in Canada was raised by those juniors. And they represent 4% of total capitalization. So it tells you that the risk capital in Canada is not true, there's none. It's going into a sector that is risky, okay, but very, very key to our economy and certainly in many parts of our country. So the point is that if you have regulations that basically are looking at the seasoned issuers and is not very careful about those small companies, you're going to destroy a significant engine of growth in our country. And I suggest to you, this is truly a major issue about the proposal to centralize the securities regulation.